Something about Cassius staying so calm while everything around Windermere is starting to crack apart just doesn't sit right with me. I mean, think about it. Danny and Charlotte are about to sneak into the place. Valentine is probably not far behind trying to get to Charlotte before things spiral out of control. And meanwhile, Jocelyn is literally locked away in the basement like some secret nobody can afford to let loose. And somehow Cassius is acting like none of this matters, at least on the surface. But I can't help but feel like that's exactly what makes him dangerous right now. Because the moment a man like Cassius finally decides something does matter to him, everything changes fast. And honestly, I keep coming back to Lulu in all of this because Britt disappearing with Rocco doesn't just create panic for Dante and Lulu, it creates pressure on Cassius personally. That's the part that feels important to me. Lulu isn't just another person in town to him. She's probably the only emotional weakness Cassius has left. So if Lulu shows up, desperate, scared for Rocco's life, maybe crying, maybe demanding answers, I don't know. I think that could push Cassius into territory even he didn't expect to cross. Because now Britt is involved too. And that changes the equation completely. It seems that Cassius has spent most of his life separating loyalty from emotion. Sidwell gave him purpose. Sidwell gave him power, but Britt is his sister. Lulu is the woman he loves. Rocco is an innocent kid caught in the middle. So suddenly this cold synthesis project doesn't feel like the priority anymore. It feels like a trap, a ticking bomb sitting underneath everybody's lives. And what really caught my attention was Cullum suddenly moving around in such a hurry. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but whenever characters like Cullum start acting urgently without explaining why, somebody is already being hunted. That's how these stories usually work. Cullum doesn't chase people for fun. If he's mobilizing, there's a reason. And if Britt took Rocco and disappeared, then yeah, I think Cassius immediately realizes what's about to happen next. Cullum tracks them down. Sidwell gets involved. And Britt probably doesn't survive that situation. That's the part I can't shake. Because Cassius knows exactly what Sidwell and Cullum are capable of. Probably better than anyone. Which means if he wants Britt and Rocco alive, he may have to burn down the very thing Sidwell cares about most just to distract him. Literally. The lab. And honestly, the idea of Cassius blowing up the cold synthesis lab feels crazy at first until you really think about it. Then suddenly it starts making too much sense. If the lab explodes, Sidwell's entire operation collapses into chaos. Resources shift. Attention shifts. Cullum gets pulled back. Everybody starts scrambling to contain the damage. And in that confusion, Britt gets time to escape. Rocco gets distance. Maybe enough to disappear completely. What if that explosion isn't revenge at all? What if it's protection? Because I might be wrong, but Cassius doesn't strike me as somebody who suddenly becomes heroic overnight. He's too damaged for that. Too deep in Sidwell's world. But there's a chance he decides certain people matter more than the mission. And that's different. That's personal survival mixed with guilt and desperation. Honestly, those kinds of choices usually create the biggest disasters in Port Charles. And meanwhile, Windermere itself is becoming a pressure cooker. Danny sneaking in. Charlotte trapped in the middle of all this. Valentine, probably armed, emotional, reckless. Jocelyn imprisoned. Downstairs. It's chaos before the explosion even happens. So if the lab suddenly detonates while all these people are inside or nearby, that could accidentally save multiple lives at once. That's the weird irony I keep thinking about. Cassius may end up saving people he never intended to save. Jocelyn could escape because security systems failed during the blast. Valentine could get Charlotte out while Sidwell's men are distracted. Danny might survive only because everybody's attention shifts toward the fire and destruction instead of hunting intruders. Even Britt and Rocco escaping town safely could happen because nobody's focused on them anymore. It's almost like one selfish decision from Cassius could unintentionally become a rescue mission for half the canvas. But then there's the darker side of this that nobody's talking about enough. If Cassius destroys the lab, Sidwell will want blood. And Cassius knows that. So the second that explosion happens, Cassius probably has to disappear too. Fast. Because if Sidwell even suspects betrayal, it's over. There are no second chances with a man like Sidwell. Which means Cassius would need a backup plan already in motion before he lights that fuse. Maybe a fake suspect. Maybe evidence planted against somebody else. Maybe even framing one of the intruders at Windermere. And honestly, what if that's where Jocelyn becomes important? Because let's not forget, Jocelyn knows Cassius kidnapped her. That secret alone could destroy him. So even if Cassius accidentally helps free her during the chaos, he still has a massive problem standing right in front of him afterward. Jocelyn becomes a witness, a liability, unless he makes a deal. And I keep circling back to this possibility that Cassius may try to manipulate Jocelyn emotionally after the explosion. Not threaten her exactly. More complicated than that. Maybe he convinces her that exposing him would put Lulu, Britt, or even Rocco in danger. Maybe he claims the explosion prevented something worse from happening. Maybe part of that is even true. That's the thing about Cassius that makes him fascinating to me. The truth around him is always blurry. You can never fully tell where manipulation ends and sincerity begins. Because what if he really does regret abducting Jocelyn? What if saving her becomes the first genuinely human thing he's done in a long time? Or maybe that's exactly what he wants everybody to believe. See, this is where the story starts getting messy in the best possible way. Nobody's purely innocent anymore. Not even Cassius. Especially not Cassius. But I do think Lulu changes him somehow. Maybe not enough to redeem him completely, but enough to make him hesitate. Enough to make him betray Sidwell at the worst possible moment. And if that happens, the fallout could be enormous. Because Sidwell losing the cold synthesis project isn't just a financial loss. It's power, control, reputation. Men like Sidwell don't forgive humiliation like that. So if Cassius really is the one behind the explosion, even secretly, then this story probably doesn't end with escape. It starts a war, a quiet one at first, hidden moves, lies, cover-ups, people disappearing, but still a war. And the scary part is, I'm not even sure Cassius survives it. That's what keeps bothering me. He feels like somebody's standing right on the edge right now. Like he's about to make one impossible choice that changes everything around him forever. Save his sister. Protect Lulu. Save Rocco. Or stay loyal to Sidwell and keep his own life intact. I don't think he can do both anymore. And if the lab really goes up in flames while Windermere is flooded with intruders and secrets, then maybe the biggest question isn't who escapes. Maybe the real question is whether Cassius planned to survive the explosion at all.